My fingertips brushed against the silk of Gerardo Luis's tie, the fabric warmer than I expected in the Mediterranean heat. 4 months I'd worked in this villa. 4 months of perfecting my invisibility, of keeping my observations locked behind careful smiles and downcast eyes. But this morning was different. The marble foyer smelled of espresso and bergamot, his cologne, something Italian and expensive that clung to the air long after he left a room. Morning light poured through the arched windows, painting golden squares across the travertine floors I'd mopped on my hands and knees at dawn. The Murano glass chandelier overhead caught the sun, scattering rainbow fractals across walls, hung with Renaissance paintings worth more than my entire neighborhood back in Atlanta had ever been worth combined. "You're getting better at this," Gerardo said, his voice carrying that subtle Italian accent that made even simple words sound dangerous. Not threatening, though. I'd learned quickly that his intensity wasn't cruelty, at least not toward those who earned his respect. I adjusted the Windsor knot, my knuckles grazing the crisp white shirt beneath his vest. His jaw was sharp and clean-shaven, and I could see the faint scar that curved along his temple, a souvenir from whatever violent legacy had shaped him into the man other men feared. At 38, he moved through the world like someone who'd never had to ask permission for anything. "There," I said, smoothing the tie flat against his chest. "Perfect." His dark Italian eyes met mine, and for a heartbeat, I saw something shift in them. Curiosity, maybe, or surprise that I wasn't performing the same nervous deference as the other staff, who practically genuflected when he entered a room. That's when I saw it through the arched doorway behind him. Paolo, the driver who'd been with the Lewis family for 7 years, adjusting something at his waist near the gleaming black sedan. The Mediterranean morning sun caught metal, the distinct edge of a pistol grip as he shifted his jacket. My pulse spiked, a warning bell clanging in my chest. Paolo always carried a weapon. Every member of Gerardo's security did, but not positioned like that. Not in quick draw position, low on the hip where muscle memory could reach it in half a second. And not with that expression carved into his face, the same desperate determination I'd seen on my stepfather's face, the night he came home with blood on his knuckles and lies on his tongue. I kept my expression smooth, my hands still resting against Gerardo's tie. Years of reading danger in cramped Atlanta apartments had taught me how to hide every emotion, how to become invisible when survival demanded it, and bold when staying silent meant death. "Your driver has a gun," I whispered, my lips barely moving. "Don't get in the car." Gerardo's entire body went rigid beneath my hands. His eyes, which had been almost warm, turned to black ice in an instant. "What did you say?" I didn't repeat myself. Instead, I stepped back, picked up the clothes brush from the console table, and ran it across his shoulders with practiced efficiency. To anyone watching through the windows, we were simply completing his morning routine. "Paolo," I said, my voice so low it was almost subaudible. "Hip holster, quick draw position." He keeps checking his watch, then looking at the car. Wrong body language for someone just waiting. Gerardo's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the skin like a trapped pulse. His hand came up slowly, adjusting his cufflink, the gesture so casual it could have been nothing. But I felt the tension radiating off him, like heat from sun-baked stone. For a long moment, he said nothing. The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled taut, and I wondered if I'd just made the most catastrophic mistake of my life. Men like Gerardo Luis didn't appreciate being told what to do, especially not by a black American housemaid who'd only been in Italy for 4 months and still stumbled over basic Italian phrases. But then he moved. "Antonio," he called out, his voice carrying that edge of absolute command that made people respond before conscious thought. His head of security appeared from the adjacent sitting room like smoke materializing into solid form, his hand already resting near his weapon. "Cancel the car. Tell Paolo I'll be working from the villa this morning."
Within an hour, Paolo was on his knees in the villa's wine cellar, Antonio's gun pressed to the base of his skull. I watched from the shadows as the confession spilled out like blood. 75,000 euros from the Santoros. 3 cars. A coordinated ambush at the intersection near the marina. Gerardo would have been dead before his body hit the pavement. I should have felt something. Horror. maybe pride. Instead, I felt only the cold certainty that I'd just stepped into a world with no exit signs. "My office," Gerardo said to me, as Paolo was dragged away. Now, his private study smelled of old leather and expensive whiskey. Renaissance paintings lined walls, the colour of dried blood, and photographs of a severe-looking man, his father, Don Vittorio, watched, from gilded frames like sentries guarding the dead. Gerardo circled his desk, studying me the way a jeweller studies a stone, looking for flaws. "Why did you see it when no one else did?" "Because I've spent my whole life watching for violence before it arrives," I said, meeting his eyes. "My stepfather taught me that survival means reading body language better than words." Paolo's hands were shaking. His pupils were dilated. He touched that gun 7 times in 3 minutes. "And you weren't afraid of me? Of what warning me might cost?" "I was terrified," I admitted, "but I was more afraid of staying silent and watching you die." Something shifted in his expression. "You see things everyone else misses. In my business, that means you're worth more than gold. Triple your salary. You're my personal assistant now." The door burst open before I could respond. A silver-haired man in an expensive suit stormed in Uncle Tommaso, whose eyes raked over me with undisguised contempt. "A black American girl in your inner circle. Gerardo, this is not our way." Gerardo's voice dropped to something lethal. "Our way got Paolo a gun and me in a coffin. Her way kept me alive. Question me again, and you'll find out which way I prefer." The next 3 weeks blurred together. Antonio treated me with cautious respect. Marco, the enforcer, made his skepticism clear with every weighted glance. But Isabetta Luis Gerardo's mother, with silver hair and surgical eyes, surprised me. "You have intelligent eyes," she said. "My son will need that." The other staff split down the middle, some curious, others hostile. Maria, the housemaid, whispered warnings about getting too close. During negotiations, my observations proved invaluable. Though I navigated constant microaggressions, my intelligence questioned, my presence remarked upon, my motives assumed. Then came the envelope slipped under my door at midnight. Inside, a single photograph of my younger sister in Atlanta, walking home from school. And written on the back in elegant script, "Angelo Santoro sends his regards." The Naples docks at midnight smelled of salt water and diesel fuel, with something darker underneath rust and old blood, maybe. I stood behind Gerardo in all black, as Antonio had instructed, my natural hair pulled into a severe bun. Trying to disappear into the shadows while knowing my presence screamed anomaly among the armed Italian men surrounding us. Bruno Russo emerged from between shipping containers, 60 years of violence carved into his face. "Gerardo, still bringing your staff to business meetings. I see." His pause before, "Staff said everything his smile didn't." Gerardo's hand moved to my lower back, claiming, protecting. "Loretta stays." As they talked shipment details, I catalogued everything. Russo's men positioned too deliberately, the glint of metal from containers that should have been empty. Hand signals passing between groups that were supposedly separate. The exact formation of an ambush. I'd seen similar setups in Atlanta, just with different accents and better suits. I leaned close to Gerardo, whispered coordinates against his ear. 3 o'clock, behind the blue container. 9 o'clock, on the crane platform. They're signalling. This is a setup. Gerardo's jaw tightened, but he didn't look. Instead, he smiled at Russo. "Before we inspect the shipment, I should mention I brought insurance." He touched his phone. Floodlights erupted from positions I hadn't even noticed, illuminating Russo's hidden men like insects under a microscope. Simultaneously, Gerardo's own forces emerged from the darkness. At least 30 armed soldiers, rifles trained with surgical precision. Russo's face drained of colour. "Gerardo, this is a misunderstanding." "No," Gerardo said, pulling his weapon with fluid grace. "This is a lesson about loyalty." He fired twice, centre mass, then head. Russo's body hit the dock and tumbled into the black water with barely a splash. I watched a man die and felt nothing. No horror, no satisfaction, just the cold understanding that this was survival in a different language. In the car, Gerardo studied me in the dashboard's green glow. "You're not afraid of blood." "I'm afraid of being powerless," I said. "Blood is just proof that power changed hands." His dark eyes held mine. "You're under my protection now, Loretta Williams. In my inner circle. That means your family, whether the old guard likes it or not." 3 days later, the message arrived through one of Gerardo's restaurant managers, a man who'd worked for the family for 20 years. Angelo Santoro's words, delivered verbatim. "The great Gerardo Luis keeps a black pet now. How American of him. Tell your boss. His father would die of shame all over again." But it was what came next that froze my blood. The manager placed a small jewelry box on Gerardo's desk. Inside, on white silk, my sister's high school ID badge, and a single bullet. Isabetta Luis's summons came on cream-coloured stationery slipped under my door. The terrazzo. Noon. Come alone. She sat like a queen overlooking the Mediterranean. Silver hair perfectly coiffed. Espresso service laid out on a table that probably cost more than my mother's house. Her eyes, Gerardo's eyes, but sharper, older, tracked me like a sniper's scope. "Sit, child. We must talk about my son." I sat, accepting the delicate cup she poured. The espresso was bitter and perfect. "There was a woman before you," Isabetta said. "Francesca. Beautiful. Sicilian. From a family as old as ours. The marriage was arranged political chess, not love. She thought she could control Gerardo, thought his feelings made him weak. Her smile was knife-thin. She was wrong. When he discovered she'd been passing information to the Battaglia family, information that got 3 of our men killed, she disappeared. Some say he killed her. He didn't, but he let her believe he would if she ever returned." My throat tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because my son hasn't let anyone close in 5 years. He builds walls made of violence and tradition. But with you," she paused, sipped her espresso with aristocratic precision. "With you, I see something different. You don't fear him, but you also don't try to change him. You accept what he is." "Does it matter what I feel?" The words came out sharper than intended. "Your family barely tolerates me. Uncle Tommaso called me an exotic distraction yesterday." To my face. "Tommaso is a dinosaur. His world is dying." Isabetta leaned forward, and I saw steel beneath the elegance. "Answer me this honestly. If you watched Gerardo kill someone who deserved it, could you still sleep beside him that night?" I thought of my stepfather's hands around my mother's throat. Of the night I was 12, and held a kitchen knife, ready to use it. Of what justice means when the law looks the other way. "Yes," I said. "If they deserved it. Yes." Isabetta smiled genuinely this time. "Then you might be exactly what he needs. But understand, loving a man like my son means accepting all of him. The Renaissance art and the blood. The tenderness and the brutality. There is no middle ground in our world." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and every ounce of warmth vanished from her face. "Antonio just found a wire in Gerardo's office. Someone in this house is feeding information to the Santoros." Her eyes locked on mine. "He thinks it might be you." The Bari crew hit us in a warehouse that smelled of motor oil and lies. "Imported olive oil," the crates claimed. Inside, enough weapons to start a small war. Bullets punched through wood, and I hit the concrete as Gerardo's world exploded into violence. I heard him grunt, saw him stagger, blood spraying from his neck where flying glass had found an artery. Antonio and Marco returned fire, but Gerardo was going down, his hand pressed uselessly against the wound. I moved without thinking. Ripped off my scarf, wrapped it tight around his throat, while bullets sang overhead. "Stay with me," I hissed. His blood was hot on my fingers, his pulse hammering against my palm like a caged bird. By the time Antonio secured the site, Gerardo's shirt was soaked crimson. In his private bathroom, I cleaned the wound with hands steadier than my heartbeat. He sat on the marble counter, and I stood between his legs, my fingers gentle on his throat, where his life pulsed just beneath the skin. Our faces were inches apart. His cologne mixed with blood and gunpowder, a scent I was learning to associate with survival. Isabetta was wrong about me. he said quietly, his accent thick with emotion. I'm not incapable of love. I'm terrified of it, because everyone I've loved has either betrayed me or died. I'm not Francesca, I whispered, and I'm not some fragile thing you need to protect. I survived Atlanta. I can survive this. It's not about survival anymore. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. I can't stop thinking about you. The way you move through my world like you belong there. The way you're not afraid to challenge me. The way you see me not the Don. Just me. Then stop fighting it, I breathed. Stop pretending this isn't happening. The kiss was inevitable. Desperate. His hands tangled in my curls, my fingers gripping his blood-stained shirt. When we pulled apart, both gasping, he said, "If you stay with me, they'll use you against me. Angelo Santoro already calls you my weakness. You will never be safe." I didn't come to Italy to be safe. I came to live. He carried me to his bedroom, not the ornate master suite, but his private quarters with family photographs and Italian books I was learning to read. By sunrise, we belonged to each other completely. In the morning light, he traced the melanin of my skin like Renaissance art, and I mapped his scars like constellations. His phone shattered the peace. Antonio's voice, frantic in Italian. Gerardo's face went white. "What?" I asked. "What is it?" He looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. Your sister. Someone took her from her school in Atlanta 2 hours ago, 3 months in, and our morning routine had become sacred. I adjusted Gerardo's tie while reviewing schedules, our conversations weaving business and intimacy into something neither of us could untangle anymore. I spoke conversational Italian now, could identify family players by sight, predicted territorial disputes before they ignited. The household had split down the middle. Maria and the kitchen staff accepted me. Others still looked through me, like I was a stain on their tradition. Then the Santoros hit the nightclub. Gerardo's phone rang at 2 a.m. By the time we arrived, 3 bodies were being loaded into ambulances, and something was written on the wall in blood. When did Luis start keeping pets? The racial slur needed no translation. Gerardo's rage was volcanic but controlled, like magma moving beneath stone. "You stay home tomorrow," he said in the car. "Extra security. No arguments. I've proven myself." "This isn't about trust," his voice cracked. "They're targeting you specifically. The message wasn't for me, Larita. It was about you. I can't." He stopped, jaw working. "I can't lose you." I stayed home. Hated it. Paced the villa like a caged thing, while Gerardo investigated with Antonio and Marco. That's when they came. The villa breach was surgical. Marco went down first. I heard the thud from the hallway. I grabbed the knife from my dresser, remembered every move Antonio had drilled into me. Caught the first man in the throat with my elbow, the second in the groin. But there were 5 of them. Hands grabbed my hair, slammed me into the wall. Stars exploded across my vision. Zip ties bit into my wrists so tight I felt bones grinding. A hood went over my head, turning my world black. One of them laughed, close to my ear. "The boss is going to love this." Breaking Luis by taking his black whore. They dragged me to a vehicle. I forced myself to think through the terror. Counted turns. Left, right, right. Straight for 8 minutes. Left again. Gravel road. 14 minutes total. The smell of salt water and industrial oil near the coast. Probably abandoned warehouses. I knew Gerardo would come. I just had to survive until then. The vehicle stopped. Doors opened. Someone yanked me out, and I hit concrete hard enough to taste blood. Then a voice I recognized, cultured, cruel, speaking English with Sicilian edges. "Welcome, Miss Williams. I'm Angelo Santoro. And by morning, your lover will watch you die on live video." I woke to rust and decay. The textile factory was a corpse of Italy's industrial past. Broken windows, machinery, skeletons, pigeons, nesting in rafters. Angelo Santoro sat before me in a suit that cost more than my mother made in a year. Silver hair, perfectly styled. Eyes like a serpent, evaluating prey. "Miss Williams." My American name sounded like a slur in his mouth. "You're the reason Gerardo Luis has lost his way. His father, Don Vittorio, A real man would die of shame all over again. A great Italian don, reduced to chasing an American girl who doesn't belong in our world. Go to hell. I spat through split lips. He smiled. Oh, you're going somewhere much worse. Eastern Europe. Trafficking networks that specialize in breaking proud women. By the time Gerardo finds you, if he finds you, you'll be destroyed, used, broken. And he'll know his love led to this. That's my revenge. Not killing him, but making him live with what loving you cost. Terror flooded cold through my veins. Death I could face. But this. The factory doors exploded inward. Through smoke and debris, I saw him. Gerardo moved like divine vengeance incarnate, his weapon an extension of his body. Antonio flanked right, Marco left. Behind them, every soldier in the Lewis organization poured through the breach like wrath given form. But Angelo was faster. He grabbed me, cold metal pressing against my temple. Stop or I paint the walls with her brains. Everything froze. Gerardo stood 20 feet away, weapon trained on Angelo's head, but unable to shoot without risking me. The moment stretched like a razor blade against skin. Then Gerardo did something that shattered my understanding of him completely. He dropped his weapon. The clatter echoed like a death knell. He removed his jacket. And then, God, he knelt. Hands behind his head in surrender. Let her go. Take me instead. Boss, no! Antonio's voice cracked with horror. It's not a negotiation. Gerardo's eyes never left my face, and I saw everything he'd never said aloud burning there. I'm unarmed. I'm kneeling. You have me. Let her walk out, and you can do whatever you want with me. Angelo laughed the sound of pure sadistic joy. The great Gerardo Luis, begging for a black girl's life. This is better than I dreamed. Film this. Everyone will know you broke for her. No! I screamed, as Antonio grabbed me, dragging me toward the exit. Gerardo! No! The last thing I saw was him kneeling on concrete, surrendering his empire, his life, his everything for me. Then I was in the SUV, and Antonio's voice was saying something I couldn't process. Isabetta has a plan, but you have to trust us. You have to go back. Back at the villa, Isabetta transformed into something terrifying. Gone was the elegant matriarch serving espresso. This was a warrior queen. She made calls in rapid Italian, her voice diamond hard, summoning debts decades old. Within 2 hours, the villa filled with men in expensive suits, representatives from families across southern Italy who'd watched Angelo Santoro's recklessness with growing alarm. His vendetta was bad for everyone's business. He has Gerardo at the old warehouse near Napoli docks, Antonio reported, his face ashen. Same place Russo died. He's making a point. I stood. I'm going back. Absolutely not. Antonio looked like I'd suggested suicide. The boss would kill me. The boss is going to die if we don't act. My voice was steady, despite the terror clawing at my throat. Angelo's ego is his weakness. He'll want the theatre of me begging, of proving Gerardo's love destroyed him, while he's gloating, your team's position for assault. Isabetta studied me with those surgical eyes, then nodded. She's right. Angelo wants a spectacle. We'll give him one. She turned to Antonio. Get Marco inside their security team. Make it clean. 6 hours after being rescued, I walked back into hell voluntarily. The warehouse smelled of sea rot and rust. Angelo's men patted me down roughly while he watched, smirking like a man holding all the cards. Then I saw Gerardo chained in the center, face bloodied, shirt torn. When our eyes met, his fury and terror hit me like a physical blow. I'm here to make a trade, I said, voice stronger than my hammering heart. Let him go. Keep me instead. Permanently. I'll sign anything. Angelo laughed, producing documents with flourish. These papers transfer your custody to my trafficking partners. You'll disappear into Eastern Europe. Sign, and your lover walks free. I took the pen. Gerardo was screaming my name, straining against chains. I signed anyway. 3 pages. My freedom for his life. Now let him go. Angelo nodded. His men unlocked Gerardo's chains. Antonio appeared, dragging a struggling Gerardo toward the exit. Our eyes met one last time, I mouthed. Trust me. The moment they cleared the door, I caught Isabetta's eye. She was standing among Angelo's security team, unnoticed in the chaos. She nodded once. Angelo grabbed my arm. Finally! The great Luis Empire falls, because its Don couldn't resist an American. The lights died. Explosions rocked 3 walls simultaneously, and in the darkness, I heard Gerardo's voice, closer than possible, deadly as a blade. You touched her. Now you die. Chaos erupted in synchronized violence. 3 walls exploded inward simultaneously. Snipers' shots cracked through the darkness, taking out Angelo's perimeter guards with surgical precision. Marco Isabetta's inside man cut my restraints with a knife that materialized from nowhere. Then Gerardo re-entered like death incarnate, fully armed, his face a mask of controlled fury that made my blood freeze. He shot Angelo's kneecaps first. The crack of bone, the scream. Angelo collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Gerardo walked closer, methodical, terrifying. That's for taking her. Right shoulder. Angelo's shriek echoed off concrete. That's for threatening to sell her. Left shoulder. That's for every racist word you spoke. He pressed the gun to Angelo's forehead. And this? Gerardo Luis, drop your weapon! Capitano Elena Ricci burst through the smoke with her anti-mafia task force. A dozen officers with weapons drawn. Time crystallized into something sharp and breakable. Gerardo's finger tightened on the trigger. Angelo bleeding beneath him. And me, screaming, Please, don't throw everything away for revenge. Our eyes met across the warehouse. I saw him calculating the satisfaction of pulling the trigger versus losing me forever to a prison cell. He lowered the gun, let it clatter to concrete. Smart choice, Ricci said, cuffing him. But her eyes held something else. Respect, maybe, or pity. The trial became a circus. International media camped outside the courthouse. Headlines screamed, Mafia boss falls for American Maid. Every article dripping with racial spectacle, reducing our love to tabloid fodder. I testified, walking a razor's edge between truth and protection. Angelo, surprisingly, refused to fully cooperate with prosecution. Some twisted code of honor, even enemies shared. But Ricci had been building her case for years. Attempted murder, assault with intent, weapons violations, RICO charges that threatened to bury Gerardo for 25 years. The courtroom was packed when the judge read the plea agreement. Gerardo would divest from criminal operations, cooperate with anti-mafia investigations, transform everything legitimate. Sentence: 3 years probation, 1,000 hours community service, lifetime monitoring, forfeiture of specific assets. Not justice, but survival. From the gallery, I watched Gerardo accept the deal, his shoulders rigid with the weight of transformation. Our eyes met. He mouthed, Ti amo. I mouthed back, always. 3 months later, I stood in our bathroom staring at 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test, and heard the front door open as Gerardo came home to a villa that was no longer a fortress, but might become a home. And outside, a car I didn't recognize, idled at the gate. The transformation was brutal. Gerardo divested from illegal operations under microscopic scrutiny. Money laundering became legitimate investment firms. Protection rackets became private security. Some family members left, unable to accept going straight. Uncle Tommaso died of a heart attack 3 months into the transition, cursing Gerardo's name with his last breath. I established the Angela Foundation, named for a trafficking victim we'd found too late helping women escape exploitation. Working with Capitano Ricci felt surreal, but we were strange allies, united by purpose. My work gained international recognition. I became more than Gerardo Luis's partner. I became a force. He proposed in the villa garden where we'd first kissed. The ring was a conflict-free diamond, his insistence set in gold with traditional Italian filigree. Will you marry me despite the probation and the enemies and the world thinking we're impossible? Because you're the most possible thing that's ever happened to me. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The wedding bridged worlds. Gospel choir and Italian opera, soul food and Neapolitan cuisine. My mother flew from Atlanta, weeping as she walked me down the aisle. Isabetta stood beside Gerardo, blessing a union that transformed everything. Some old guard families boycotted, others attended, recognizing power had shifted. 2 years later, I stared at that pregnancy test, and when I told Gerardo, he lifted me off my feet, spinning me, laughing with unguarded joy. We're creating a bridge between your world and mine, between who we were and who we're becoming. Leonardo Williams Luis was born exactly 3 years after I'd whispered my warning about Paolo. Gerardo held him with infinite gentleness, this tiny human carrying both our legacies. I watched my Italian husband sing lullabies to our black and Italian son and felt something break open in my chest. On the terrazzo, Isabetta held Leonardo, speaking to him in Italian and English both. Gerardo's arm circled my waist as we watched the Mediterranean sunset paint the sky gold and crimson. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Everything you gave up to be here?" I didn't give up anything. I chose everything. I turned to face him. That morning when I adjusted your tie, I was choosing life over silence, courage over safety, you over every easy path. "We saved each other," he said. "We built each other, something neither of us could have been alone."